Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission podcast. My name is Rebecca Toomey, and I'm here with my lovely co host and sister, Rachel Smith.
Hi, everyone.
You're waiting for that extra Smith this time.
Yeah.
We are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through your life and with your relationship with Yahweh. And we are currently in a series about being countercultural and the ways of the world and exposing darkness. And today we are going to talk about something that is absolutely terrifying, and that is Taylor Swift.
It actually
Just
is
kidding.
terrifying talking about this because
That's what I meant. And there's the
people
joke. It
do not
actually
like
it
when you talk.
actually is terrifying to talk about Taylor Swift at all because God forbid you have any opinion about Taylor Swift that is not positive. You'll get eaten alive. I'm kind of ready for that though. Eat us alive. Bring the comments. We're ready. We're ready to talk about it.
I mean, hopefully we will just stick to like the most obvious aspects. Like we don't have anything personal against her or anything she does. I feel like we should start in prefacing that we used to love Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
we
So,
were,
really, the truth is that what we want to talk about is an example of really we're using Taylor Swift specifically to
yeah.
talk about something that's overarching in our society,
Yeah,
and
like
that is
a
celebrities
phenomenon.
and Hollywood culture and this idea of idolization of a person
Yeah.
and the transformation that happens within these stars and musicians specifically, that they are often turned by this Hollywood system and agenda or darkness. There's so many words that we could use, and we could use any artist,
Yeah.
really any secular artist we could use to have this conversation. But we, or me, has chosen
Mhm.
Taylor Swift specifically because of the way that our young girls are now so drawn to her, especially in the church and in
Mhm.
Christian communities, that I think she is the person that we should use to have this discussion.
Yeah.
Because, 10-year-old girls aren't necessarily going to be listening to Eminem, right?
Right.
I hope.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's a matter of we're kind of going to take a critical look at what young girls are consuming
Mhm.
because this is why I wanted to preface that we once were Taylor Swift fans
Yep.
is I listened to her music when she first came out when she was 16 and I was 17 or
Yeah,
first came out mainstream that you could actually
sure.
buy an album. That's back when we bought CDs.
Hmm.
And so it was almost like I grew up with her in a lot of ways, that her music was always love songs about her high school and then into her 20s, her relationships. Like that's always been her thing.
We were both young when I first saw you.
Yeah, I was thinking more like teardrops on my guitar.
Oh,
It's
he's
so
the reason
depressing.
for.
Teardrops on my guitar. But this
Yeah,
is just
I,
going to
I
turn
want
into
to
a
give
podcast of us.
evidence that we really were Taylor Swift fans,
Yes,
and
and
both of us.
and there has been a shift both in society and culture and in her.
And in
And
us.
yeah, and in us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's not just her that's changed.
Everything has changed.
Exactly.
The whole
But
episode is going to be Taylor Swift lyrics.
there are some just blatant things that we cannot ignore
No,
in
we can't.
shifts that she's made that make us uncomfortable and uneasy.
I think the point here is that if she had stayed the same as she was those first couple of albums, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But
Yeah.
the reason we are having this conversation is because of how things have unfolded after the last, gosh, we're old. I was gonna say decade is more than a decade.
No,
It's
it's
almost
like,
2.
yeah, it's almost 20 years. Actually, it is. I just turned 36.
Oh my, it
So,
is 20 years. Wow.
yeah,
You're
it's really nuts. Yeah, and you brought up that you know, we could use all kinds of other celebrities as an example, and perhaps at some point we can reference other ones too, because certain themes in her music videos or her performances are we're seeing more and more from Hollywood in general, and they're disturbing and oftentimes demonic. And
absolutely.
I feel like that is a grander picture of the spiritual condition of our society. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I think the
it's
question that many people are posing in Christian communities is Taylor Swift a witch? But the same question, or asked another way, I think could be, is Hollywood influenced by the devil? Or has Hollywood turned demonic? I mean, there are
yeah.
many different ways we could ask this question because let's talk about another example real quick. Sam Smith. Not saying he's any ever been any golden child as far as ethics go necessarily. But when he first started on the scene with music, he was dressed pretty normally and singing kind of like her, right? He was singing his love songs or whatever. I
Mhm.
didn't really listen to Sam Smith, so I can't really speak too much to that. But now, if you want to fast forward years into his career, he's literally on stage dressed as the devil
Yeah.
and people in cages, and just the
Mhm.
presentation that is being put out is extremely demonic and
Right.
extremely dark. And that is what has happened to Taylor Swift. And that is why I think there is a call to to be concerned, and to really, this is also parents to parents, right? And I have 2 daughters, one of which is old enough to be influenced by things, the other one's a baby. But I have to ask myself these questions. Would I let my daughter listen to Taylor Swift? And a person might say, "Well, I only let her listen to like the early stuff, the stuff I listen to."
Mhm.
And that's great and everything, but I think it's important to, just like we make choices when it comes to where we shop or who we support. That's a question we need to ask ourselves too. Is maybe it's PG to listen to a couple of the first albums, but then it's not PG anymore after a bit. Is that the road that we want to go down? What happens when your daughter then discovers that there's more of her music that she hasn't heard or been allowed to listen to or wants to? And
Mhm.
now it's the stuff where she's talking about murdering people and
Mhm.
using language and, the darker stuff, because that's what happened over time is things got darker and darker. So, before we get on too many tangents,
Mhm.
I want to set the stage a little bit for even what I mean and what we mean when we talk about witch and using
Okay.
the word witch. Okay. In the first episode to this series, I talked about divination just very briefly. But this idea of divination, the word term divination, is the practice of seeking knowledge or insight about the future that is unknown through the supernatural or symbolism. So it's associated with spirituality, you might say, mystical, occult traditions, etc. But it includes tarot reading, astrology, scrying, palmistry, runes, I Ching, numerology, dream interpretation, etc. This is a topic we want to get into further. We have some guests that are going to talk about some of this stuff as we get into it. So we're not going to spend the whole episode necessarily diving into this, but witches fall under divination because they engage in what's called magical practices or considered magical practices. You will often hear, especially on, I've noticed on TLC Discovery Plus type programs, people that do tarot reading or are mediums, they will say, I'm a witch. And people just literally self subscribe themselves to that. There's all this witchy culture now. Being witchy is a thing.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
And divination is specifically mentioned in the Bible. Man, I think I might have written it down somewhere in here many, many times that we are to avoid and turn from all divination. One of the chapters I was just reading in that Bible study last night, I think it was in Isaiah, specifically said the people had totally gone to divination. They were, you know, bowing to idols, creating idols, and just in total disarray and sin. And we are called as believers to stay away from this stuff.
Right,
I
because when whether it's ancient times or more modern times, when someone is practicing in divination, whether it's getting information or whatever it is they do, what they're playing with, the fire that they're playing with is actual demons. So if we're coming at
exactly.
this from the Christian worldview, which we are,
Mhm.
just assuming most people listening to our podcast are Christian women, and that's kind of our appeal here. Like you said, this is our opinions and perspective as mothers, and we are Christian women. The reason that over and over and over again in the Bible that God says don't suffer a witch is because what witches were and are meddling with is demons. Demons are giving them information. Demons are talking to them. And he doesn't want us messing with that at all. It's playing
Yeah.
with darkness.
Yes. I'll give a great resource for this. Jen Niza, her handle is X Psychic Saved. She was a psychic medium for a long time. She was saved by Jesus. And now she exposes the truth about divination and witchcraft and tarot and astrology and all that stuff. She can speak to this much better than we can because she lived it. There's many, many other people. Angela, what is her last name? I'll put it in the show notes. Angela Marie, she's another one that got out of that world, but they were literally communicating with demons. And so if you have in your life ever experienced someone or even been involved yourself with, let's say, a psychic medium, and they have known things about your family, and saying like they were communicating with your dead family member or whatever, they were not. They were actually communicating with a demon that
Hmm.
knows your family and that
Hmm.
has been observing your family for a
For
long
thousands of
time.
years, like demons are ancient.
Absolutely. And then that goes back to our conversation on, we could even point back to our series on spiritual warfare, which was all the way back in like episode 3, where we talk about the history of demons in a sense. So might want to go back on that. But yeah, divination is it's interesting because I think it's becoming more and more popularized these days, and that's scary to me.
Hmm.
How much witchcraft focus so many TV shows, so many things that are on regular, Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime,
Yeah,
Discovery Plus,
it's
all of
become
those.
it's become so mainstream in and also in the appeal to children. Like I've even
And
seen
yes, yes.
toys in the children's aisles at like Target or Walmart that are an actual witch's
Cauldron. The cauldron?
cauldron. Yes,
Yeah.
and they do it's literally marketed as do spells and create a little creature. It's And this is becoming so mainstream, it's almost like people are desensitized that this was once looked down upon.
100% the word that I was about to that was on the tip of my tongue was we are desensitized.
Yeah.
I don't know if you realize this. You and I are recording right now on Halloween.
I do realize that, yeah.
We're recording on Halloween because we don't celebrate Halloween because it's demonic. And
Yeah.
no offense if, if you're listening, just go listen to our series on Halloween. You'll understand more. We did episodes on this.
Yeah.
But think about how desensitized the Christian community is to the word witch, to images of witches. And I guarantee, listen, ladies, we're calling you out a little bit. We're not trying to offend you, but if you dress up your little girl as a witch for Halloween today, sis, questions. We have questions. And I think more than anything, you have to ask the Lord why you are being called to dress your little girl up like a witch today, because we are called to be set apart and we are called to not participate in the things of this world. And that includes witchcraft in
Yes, and this stuff is
dang way.
real. It's not pretend. It's like Hollywood makes it seem, you know,
Fun and
yeah,
cute.
cool and innocent and but this is real. It's not just like a fantasy unicorn creature. Witches are real and there's self-professing witches who practice magic and call it white magic or black magic today.
Yep, exactly. And when they say they're tapping into the light, y'all, the light is Satan.
Yeah, he was
Who
called Lucifer, which literally means light bringer.
exactly. Did you see that thing? Did I send you that thing about the Catholic Church
Yes, yeah, yeah.
and their new character that's Lucy,
Yeah. I
Lucifer,
read it as loose, but
Loose,
yeah.
sure, Loose, Lucifer, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to get on a side tangent about the Lucifer character that's being
Mhm.
promoted, but that's all right. Something that I want to point out, many celebrities have outright said in interviews or in on video that they have sold their soul to the devil to get where
Yes.
they are.
And many of them have said point blank, I'm a witch too.
Yes.
Yes, they say these
I
things.
mean, we're talking about Taylor Swift today. She says in some of her songs, like, or in her tweets, maybe it's just the tweets. I don't think I have this written down, that she's accused of being a witch or called a witch, but there are reasons behind it, which are some of those reasons I do want to talk about. Um, so I have a couple of those below. Let's talk about that for a minute here. I don't know if there was anything else that we wanted to talk about with witchcraft necessarily, but we'll talk about Taylor Swift. So I kind of laughed when I was making these notes because enchanting, she has an enchanting influence over us. Like she's cast this spell on millions of people that really could be likened to the power of a witch enchanting an audience, right? But it's kind of funny because isn't that one album called Enchanted or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, she has a song called
It
that.
was enchanting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. That is kind of funny. I always love that song too.
I know. So something that's interesting, and I was ready to call us out on this, and I think I should, because I think that was the album we listened to when I came to your apartment, right? That time.
No, it was the one you're talking about when the one that came out when I was in college.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that one.
It was, let me look up real quick. I'm literally looking up Taylor Swift's albums. I got to go back. I'll remember it based on the cover because I remember buying the CD. It was 1989.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it was 1989, which came
W-
out in 2014.
what I wanted to say about
Wait,
this.
no, I would have graduated college by then.
Oh yeah,
I think
2014
we're
was,
talking about
you like
Red.
got married in 2014, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about Red, her album Red.
Are you sure? No, I don't think it was Red. Are you sure?
Yeah, if
I'm
you're
pretty
talking about
sure it was this one that had that song Enchanting to Meet You on it.
I thought so too. Oh, well, that is then Speak Now. That came out in 2010.
I think it could have been that.
Yeah, it's that one. It would have been that one. Yes,
Yes, because I
2010.
remember listening to this specific song.
Okay, Enchanted is on the album Red.
Red?
We
Okay,
got it
whatever.
figured out. Yeah, Mine, Sparks Fly, Back to December. Oh, you remember that song?
Yes. And
Now,
so, what I
Dear
wanted to
John.
say about this and call us out is that
Okay.
you and I were not necessarily walking with the Lord
Oh,
at the
no, not
time
at
in
all.
which we were listening to this album. In fact,
Mm-mm.
I would say we were walking the opposite because I visited you at college and you and I went out and drank alcohol, way too much of it, and we're so sick that we the next day laid in bed listening to this album
Yeah.
together, sick, feeling bad about ourselves. And I felt like when I was planning for this episode that that was significant because I don't know enough about this to be educated on this, and I want to get other guests on here that are. You know way more about this than me, but music has the ability, words have the ability to cast spells and to put us in certain places and at certain frequencies, we could even say. And so when we listen to things that are depressing or dark, actually, Mike, my husband, mentioned this, and he was on an episode a while ago about in a time in his life he was listening to really negative music, and his life was that at that time. But I kind of feel like with Taylor, it was about heartbreak
Hmm.
and all of these like negative, sad things. And that was kind of we were absorbing that and
Hmm.
taking it on. And it had its own power over us during that time where, we weren't listening to this on the way to church, getting pumped up to go talk about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
At least I wasn't.
Right. Yeah, what you're saying is, and this is an undeniable fact, music influences us. And
Yes,
if we don't think that it does consciously, it is doing it subconsciously. It is repeating messages, and there's a whole science too that you referenced frequencies that affect us on a physiological level, and it affects us mentally, and it affects our bodies. And it it- it's so covert though. It doesn't, and again, using the word desensitized, we're so desensitized and despiritualize everything, and we just take everything for face value, and everything is innocent, and everything is fine, that we don't realize how these things actually are impacting us and our
exactly.
mental health and our physical health and the choices that we make. And ironically, since I had this, I searched these albums, there's also a song on that album called Haunted.
There you go.
There's Enchanted, and there's I don't I remember I never really liked the song Haunted though.
But you're right in that the more you feed something, the more truth it has. I mean, we've talked about this in the past when we talked about birth,
Mhm.
that we're fed all these negative messages about birth. And then by the time that we're 25 to 35 having our first baby, we're scared to give birth because that's what we've been taught.
Mhm.
And honestly, music is really a form of hypnosis if you think about it.
Yes. That is a great way to put it. It
It's a form of
literally
hypnosis.
is.
You're hypnotizing yourself with the same message over and over
Yes.
and over and over again. So I ask you, what are you feeding yourself with? And perhaps that is why many are very defensive of Taylor Swift because they have been hypnotized by the music. Oh,
Yeah.
just a thought. But the other thing that you just mentioned here by, the song's called Enchanted or Haunted, is there is a lot of fascination with mystical themes in her albums. She uses a
Yeah.
lot of mystical and magical imagery in her music video for Willow. She's featured as a cloaked figure in an enchanted forest, playing with light orbs and walking through magical realms. And it's a very mystical, witchy vibe. And this is the same thing that people saw in concert, where the people are like in cloaks going in a circle doing that whole witchy tribune thing, whatever you
Mhm.
call it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the other part of this is there's symbolism within the lyrics and those kind of witchy elements to it. Like in I Did Something Bad, she says, "Oh, I did write this in my notes. Good." She writes down and she sings in the lyrics anyway. They're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. And really, it's kind of a subtle nod to her connection with these witchy themes because she's kind of playfully acknowledging this perception of her as being witchy or a witch.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but her song or her music video for the song Karma, which she did
No.
with the popular singer Ice Spice.
I have never actually watched these through. Well, I mean, the new stuff, right?
Yes.
Not intentionally, only for research purposes.
Yeah, so I watched this music video more recently. I mean, this song, I don't even think is that new. I think it came out a few years ago. The music video, the themes are literally like a heaven versus literally her going to hell and
Oh, yeah.
wearing like a horned mask, and then it continues with the imagery pulling from ancient Egyptian culture of like riding in the boat like the river Styx and delivering souls to the afterlife. And you just the imagery combined with the lyrics of that song talking about karma is a god, and it's just undeniably
Wow.
not.
Creepy.
Yes, I know. I'm like at a loss for words of where I was going with this because you were talking about these the witchy symbolism,
Mhm.
and this is very blatant anti-Christian is
Sure.
if
Yes.
we're just talking about this from the Christian perspective.
And that is something that I feel she has very much changed about herself over the years,
Mhm.
is she's changed her form and reinvented herself a bunch of times, and I would say that people would even have considered her to be this good Christian girl when she first started, but that's not the presentation that she has anymore. Her blatant support of abortion and other issues, I think, has kind of shown where she stands on things, and they're very much against the church and the Bible.
Mhm.
But just talking on this theme of witchcraft, right? And we talked about her changing forms. That's kind of shapeshifty, isn't it? A little creepy. She's gone through multiple career reinventions. She went from being a country star to a pop star, and now she's this indie folk storyteller who her most recent album, she sounds exactly like Lana Del Rey.
Oh,
Like it
really?
sounds like she's trying to be Lana Del Rey in a lot of ways, which is strange. And it's like even through every transformation, she has cast a spell on every new audience. The
Mhm.
country one, the pop one, this indie folk
Yeah.
storyteller. And it's like just this blatant acceptance. And it's very interesting. And I just kind of feel that has a bit of witchiness to it. Speaking of her music videos, there is an obsessive attention to detail that the Swifties talk about, that she's known for leaving Easter egg clues in her music videos and her social media posts, that people spend hours and hours decoding, and that there's literal people whose entire YouTube accounts are for doing this. They're dedicated to finding these hidden crafted messages and these secret trails and these like she's this master of cryptic spells and it's kind of crazy to be a
Yeah.
little bit.
It's kind of crazy.
It's kind of crazy. It's like it's its own obsession and there's an idolization behind that I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me.
I think that's one of the ways that people get so captivated is it's like she's letting people or inviting people in a world to of mystery and to decode something and just leaving little breadcrumbs, which just as I said, had that sentence come out of my mouth, isn't it a witch who leaves the no, it's who is
Yeah, and
it?
Hansel and Gretel, it was
Yeah,
the
Hansel and
witch who
Gretel.
left the breadcrumbs for the little kids
No,
to
the
come.
kids leave the breadcrumbs to find their way back, and the
Oh,
witch is the one who lures them away.
okay. Well,
I got witches on the mind.
which is on the mind. Okay, so I have a funny one here in my notes, and you're gonna love this because you have cats. But
Oh, your cat.
my cat theory here. Okay, so think about Sabrina, the teenage witch, and the cat. That's like
The talking cat. Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
there is a lot of symbolism between witches and cats.
Oh, yeah.
And Taylor Swift is obsessed with cats. Obsessed with cats. She has 3 cats. Maybe she had other cats, I don't know. But apparently right now she has Meredith, Olivia, and Benjamin.
You looked up the cat's names.
And a witch having feline companions is like a thing. So it's just
So
adding another layer. It's not helping her case.
there is that lore. I mean, this is goes back like thousands of years that actually ironically we've
Yeah,
already
isn't Cleopatra a witch and she had a cat?
no, that cats are so associated like symbolically with witches that they used to believe, several hundred years ago that witches would transform into cats. So they especially black cats. So they didn't trust them. And that's one of the reasons there's that, kind of stigma. And the irony that we've already mentioned that we're recording this on Halloween, I one of my cats is a inside outside cat and I every year that we've lived in a neighborhood make a really big point like I mentioned it to my husband multiple times before I came on to record tonight. Do not let our cat outside. I will not let him be outside on Halloween night because still to this day and he rolls his eyes at me that I'm just being paranoid. But to this day, people capture and kill cats on Halloween because for hundreds of years it started as this I don't know what you want to call it, but the story that witches would transform into cats and then there's especially in the United States like the witch hunts that early colonial people would go on and that there's the Salem witch trials then and that they became obsessive of and afraid especially of black cats. And that I don't know if you want to call it myth or rumor or whatever you want to call it has continued that people just do messed up things to cats especially on Halloween and it is become even a common thing that they sacrifice because people are literally out there doing demonic things,
Rituals.
witchcraft, and
Yeah.
cats are one of the things that are involved in it, whether it's positively or negatively. So,
Did you get your cat in before this happened or
oh
what?
yeah, yeah, he was. I this afternoon I was like, "Come on, Pickles, come inside," and now I won't let him go outside till tomorrow.
Well, at least you know that he won't get possessed by a demon tonight.
Well, well, I say because he's so friendly. Like, he would just go right up to someone who would just grab him and, I don't know. You
Although
just
we
never know
still
what
have
people are up
not confirmed that he does not have other owners.
to.
Pickles could be George to someone else and
Yes.
Jimmy to someone
He
else.
probably has, like, 5 families. Yeah, the other night we were on a walk, and he likes to follow us when we go for walks, and he always stops at one point. He won't go past a certain person's yard because of it has barking dogs behind the fence. And I create this whole head canon that it's that dog's territory and he won't go into that dog's realm. So he just waits for us to, because we walk around a pond in a circle and he waits for us to come back. And always when we're walking back up on the sidewalk, he's rolling around in the grass while someone's petting him. And this woman was petting him and her daughter was walking in front of her towards us. And we're like, "Oh, that's our cat." And she's like, "Oh, really? He's so friendly. My mom was trying to bring him home." And I was like, "He's probably got multiple families." We're just his first family.
Yeah, because he is mostly an outdoor cat. He was we've talked about him before on the podcast, but he's a farm cat. They lived on a farm, so he was like used to being
Yeah.
outside. And then when they moved into a closer neighborhood, he's still out and about and then comes back.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah. He at night is miserable. He wants to be outside all night. And this is why Chris
yeah, because he's a witch and he needs the light of the
Oh, the
moon.
cat's the witch now. It's the light of the moon. I guess that is true.
Maybe you're actually saving
That's the
other
myth.
people from him tonight, from him casting spells. No,
Cats are they are very interesting animals just in their lore. That's what's funny about you bringing this up is,
I couldn't help it.
it's I think it's just kind
It's
of a funny
this one's a funny one more than
yeah, it's like a
anything.
silly one, but the lore
Maybe.
for cats and their symbolism is just it goes back to ancient Egypt is that cats have this spiritual connection and just this symbol.
I listen, man. I think there's something deeper to it. You know that. I
I
have this
know.
weird theory that I think that demons sometimes just house themselves in cats as a little storage unit for a while.
Well,
Depends on the
demons
cat.
house themselves in anything, including people.
Yeah,
So
so they could house themselves in cats.
yes. And they could house themselves in rats.
And yes, and in hats.
Now we're going off the rails.
Totally. Well, that one was a fun one. The last one that I have on my list here is that it's interesting to me the longevity of her career and that now I used to say this about a lot of artists. Like, our parents listening to oldies or whatever rock, what is that called? Classic rock.
Yeah.
And then when you hear of someone going to like a classic rock concert, you're like, wow, they're still making music, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, they're so, and then people would be like, yeah, well, that's their job. They're a career musician.
Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting to me about Taylor Swift is that she has not only remained a musician for 25 years, but she has remained relevant. It's not like she made a bunch of albums and people are listening to, she's playing the old stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's making new music and she's getting more popular.
Yeah. More popular than ever.
She's
She was not
growing.
this big when we like
No,
she was definitely big, but not this big when we listened to her.
that longevity is crazy. The different musical eras, it's like she's defying time in an
Mm.
almost magical way.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I've got on Taylor Swift, her association or affiliation with being a witch. I don't know if she's one or not. But the last thing that I want to mention, which isn't about her being a witch necessarily, is back to this idea of what we allow our girls to listen to. Here's the real reason, like Taylor Swift having cats, whatever. But the real
I know,
reason that
I have cats and I'm not a witch.
exactly. Wait, are you? Um, the real the real reason why I think that we as mothers should question our daughters listening to Taylor Swift is the increase in language, the content of her work, the hatred that has grown. Like, it used to be all like, "You broke my heart," brr, 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 and now it's like, "I'm gonna murder you in your sleep," kinda stuff.
Well, and, like, this sexually explicit too, like,
It's
it's
sexually explicit now, and in the Tortured Poets Society, there are 57 swear words compared to the 31 that she had back in 2022. In 2020, in her album Evermore, there was 19. Oh, she has an album that was called Folklore. That one only had 10 swear words, but her old records were way cleaner. And now, it was like one simple bad word, DAM. But now, fast forward, and there are just crazy amounts of swear words. So, just to talk about this real quick, she has the F word 42 times in her new stuff, the S word 25 times, hell 20 times, DAM 19 times, GD 9 times, and then some other stuff I'm not going to mention. But yeah, I feel like that alone is just a reason to be cautious about what your kids listen to, because do you want your kids saying these things or thinking these things, or being exposed to explicit language and sexual talk and self-loathing and self-love, but hating everyone else? That's
Mhm.
kind of where I wanted to circle this around to. Witch or
Yeah.
not. And is she a witch? I don't know. But is her content, or other artists, not necessarily just Taylor Swift, is that content stuff that we want our kids to be listening to as Christian moms to, you know,
Right, I think it comes down to let me look up the verse real quick.
while you're looking that up, our mom had these conversations with us a lot when we were growing up, that she'd be like very intent on what we were listening to musically and say things like, that's devil music. And I didn't understand it. I thought she was being a little dramatic when I was a kid, but now I get it. I get it.
Yeah, so it's I think the way to think about if for our children, for our little girls, like, is it edifying? Or
Mhm.
like Paul says in the Philippians, whatever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things.
Mm.
And so that's what I would challenge listeners with young girls especially is are the lyrics and the messages in her music or any other artist's music, cuz a lot of them are like this nowadays, is that pure and wholesome and edifying to our children that we're trying to raise up in the word of God, and and encourage them to in their relationship and their walk with him.
I think we could sum this up with Taylor Swift lyrics, actually. Is it going to be forever, or are you going to go down in flames?
That's what you were just thinking about the whole time I said that? What's gonna be forever? Your relationship with God or your
Descent into the.
relationship with Taylor Swift? Because at the end of the day, that's the thing is people idolize these celebrities, and that word there is key. What does it mean to make an idol? So, should a believer be making an idol of any human, especially a super wealthy one that will never know that we exist?
Absolutely. Yep. Questions to ponder on, friends. And we just encourage you pray on it. I know
Yeah.
that it's hard, especially to take something out, but it gets easier. Just,
Really, you
whatever
just
it
stop
is.
listening to it.
Yeah,
That's like, and the if we want to go back to that language, the spell breaks.
it's
I
true.
used to
It's
I
true.
used to be obsessed with, and this is a topic for a different day. I was obsessed with some Christian artists that I now believe are honestly in a pretty similar category. And I felt a conviction listening to my favorite song that I would listen to over and over again all the time. And this is one of the times that I really felt the Holy Spirit. I heard him speak to me and just cut me to my core in conviction. Is the Lord asked me, "Who are you worshiping, me or them?" And in that moment, I'm like, I can never listen to this music again. And this was a quote unquote Christian artist.
Hmm.
And I just delete, and my very favorite, like I had quotes from their songs all over my walls, and I deleted all of it off my phone, and the spell has broken. I don't feel like I need to listen to that music. I don't want to listen to that music. Like now
You don't have
I
time. The truth is, you don't have time to listen to that music because the only music that you have time for is Danny Go.
yeah, yeah. It's kids music. That's true. Maybe this makes it easier is when you only
Yes,
listen to what your kids listen to, which
that's
my
right.
kids don't listen to Taylor Swift, so
All my kids listen to is pie, pie, pumpkin, pumpkin pie, pie.
that sounds like a chant. It's
My, oh
hypnotizing
my, I love
them.
this pie. None of us like pumpkin pie either, so it's not
Maybe
working.
your kids will.
I did think about that. I thought about how, Thanksgiving is coming up, and I'm like, I wonder if Ben will want to try pumpkin pie because of this song. But yeah, anyway,
We'll see.
thanks for
And on
joining
that
me.
note,
Yeah, thanks for joining me to talk about this fun topic and get burned at the stakes by the Taylor Swifties.
yep, yeah, please don't come for us. It's just a theory.
Just a
A
theory. And again, there's many other artists that we could talk about. And maybe we will if we ever have time or interest.
yeah, we'll offend other people.
If there's any artist that you want us to offend you about, send us a message. You can send us a text actually on Buzzsprout. But thank you guys for tuning in, for being on this journey. If you would like to follow along outside the podcast, you can join the mission on Instagram at The Radiant Mission, Facebook at The Radiant Mission Podcast, or on YouTube. You can find us by searching for my name, Rebecca Toomey, Twomey. And today we're going to close with Matthew 6:33. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. We're wishing you a radiant week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.